Hey friends, how's it going? The movie opens on a quiet night outside a roadside diner. A white van pulls up and stops in front. At first glance, nothing seems unusual until we notice thick streams of blood dripping from inside. Hanging inside the van are mutilated body parts of several young women. Two diner workers step out for their smoke break, but oddly enough, they don't pay much attention to the van. Once their break is over, they head back inside. Moments later, Kate, another diner worker, finishes her shift and walks out, ready to head home. But the van suddenly roars to life and begins trailing her. Kate quickly realizes she's being followed. Trying to outsmart it, she slows her pace, and surprisingly, the van drives ahead, leaving her behind. Relieved, Kate makes her way back to her apartment building. But just as she's about to unlock the door, the deformed-faced driver sneaks up and smashes a hammer into her head, knocking her out cold. He drags her into the van and takes her to a massive warehouse. This brutal man is known as Bonesaw because he hacks his victims into bloody pieces with his saw. And now, Kate is his latest victim. When she regains consciousness, she screams in pain and terror, but Bonesaw wastes no time. He severs her head clean off. The next morning, Sheriff McConnell receives a missing persons report for Kate. She heads to the diner to ask some questions. The two workers recall seeing a suspicious white van parked outside the night before. They also reveal something chilling. Just a few weeks earlier, two other young women vanished under similar circumstances. Nobody filed reports back then, since the girls were new in town and had no family nearby. One day, they just stopped showing up at the diner, and that's when people realized they had disappeared. After discovering the blood near the diner and hearing about the van, Sheriff McConnell throws herself fully into the case. Meanwhile, the story shifts to Nina, a dancer working at a strip club. Recently, Nina has found out she's pregnant. Desperate for support, she keeps calling her boyfriend Steve, but he never picks up. Later that evening, she heads to work, struggling to start her beat-up old truck. Somehow, she makes it to the club, but things get worse. She gets into an argument with her manager and ends up getting fired on the spot. On her way out, Nina chats briefly with Jade, the bartender, and Cody, the club's DJ, who even hands her her card, telling her to call if she ever needs anything. But the moment she steps outside, a man named Stuart approaches. He's been sitting inside the club all evening, staring at her non-stop. In fact, he comes in several times a week, always watching her like a hawk. Stuart tries to strike up a conversation, but Nina brushes him off and leaves. What she doesn't notice is that Bonesaw is also nearby, parked in his creepy white van, silently watching. Nina stops at a gas station to try Steve's number one more time, but again, no answer. Frustrated, she heads back to her truck, only to find Stuart waiting for her again. Now Nina's starting to get uneasy. She tries to avoid him by going into the store, but it's closed. Creepily enough, Stuart already knew that. He even reveals he knows she just got fired, which makes her feel even more disturbed. And as if things weren't bad enough, the ominous white van passes by. Stuart notices it and realizes Nina is being stalked. He offers her a ride, but Nina ignores him, jumps back into her truck, and manages to speed away. This time though, she's more cautious. She knows Stuart will chase her, and he does. Thinking fast, Nina pulls her truck into the roadside bushes, shuts off the engine, and hides. As Stuart's car drives past, she quickly gets back on the road, leaving him behind. What she doesn't realize is that Bonesaw is even smarter. Just like she tricked Stuart, Bonesaw has been lying in wait, his van hidden in the shadows. The second Nina's truck pulls out, his headlights flicker on, and he starts tailing her. Now, on this dark, empty highway, a deadly game of cat and mouse begins under the midnight sky. Nina finally makes it to Steve's place and bangs on the door, but he doesn't answer. Forcing it open, she finds him with another woman. He's busy tattooing her, or maybe something more. But one thing's clear. That's why he ignored Nina's calls. In his mind, their relationship was already over. Heartbroken, Nina tells him she's carrying his child. But Steve coldly rejects both her and the baby. Shattered, Nina leaves without another word. She then drives to a diner, where Stuart shows up again, following her inside. He casually tries to strike up a conversation, all while staring at her as she eats. To make matters worse, Bonesaw's white van pulls up outside. When Nina finishes her meal and tries to leave, her old truck refuses to start. No matter how hard she tries, the engine finally dies. With no other choice, she reluctantly accepts a ride from Stuart. On the road, Stuart grows uncomfortably clingy until suddenly the white van slams into his car from behind. Instead of speeding up, Stuart stops, grabs a huge knife, and storms out to confront the driver. He shouts, "This girl is mine, go find someone else." Because Stuart isn't just a creep, he's a predator in his own right. But tonight, he picked a fight with a bigger monster. Bonesaw steps out, hammer in hand, and smashes it straight into Stuart's skull, splitting him open instantly. Horrified, Nina hides behind the car. Bonesaw tries to grab her too, but she fights back and manages to break free. Just then, a speeding truck barrels down the road and slams into her. Inside that truck is a young couple, so wrapped up in their argument that they don't even notice Bonesaw calmly dragging Stuart's lifeless body into his van before driving away. The couple shrugs it off and continues on their way, leaving Nina unconscious and bleeding in the middle of the road. Later, someone passing by spots her and rushes her to the hospital. Sheriff McConnell arrives, hoping to take her statement, but Nina hasn't regained consciousness yet. Among her things, the sheriff finds Cody's card and calls her in. Shortly after, Cody arrives, but unfortunately, she has no idea what happened to her. Cody gives her friend a gentle kiss and tells the sheriff to inform her once Nina wakes up. Meanwhile, Bonesaw is back at his warehouse. He strings up Stuart's body and literally saws him in half, punishment for daring to stand in his way. The next morning, the scene shifts to Jade, the bartender. She's constantly harassed by her ex-husband for money, so to survive, she secretly buys drugs from a dealer and resells them to the dancers at the strip club. But today, her manager catches wind of it and forces her to meet the dealer together. On their way, they stop at the same gas station, and there, Bonesaw is already refueling his van. But before arriving, he's been busy setting up his next move. You see, the sheriff has issued a town-wide alert about the suspicious white van. Radios everywhere are blaring the same warning: if you spot a white van, stay away. Bonesaw hears this broadcast, and with his twisted mind, he decides to turn the alert into his own cover. He hunts down another white van parked in a secluded spot, where a couple is caught up in an intimate moment. Bonesaw brutally decapitates the woman, knocks out the man, and props him up in the driver's seat. Then, using the man's own gun, Bonesaw stages the perfect scene, pulling the trigger inside his mouth, making it look like a suicide. By the time police discover it, it seems as though the killer in the white van heard the radio warning, panicked, and took his own life. And just like that, the town believes the nightmare is over, that the butcher in the van is dead. But we know the truth. Bonesaw isn't just a savage killer. He's cunning, manipulative, and far more dangerous than anyone realizes. At the gas station, Bonesaw spots Jade and immediately begins stalking her. Soon after, Jade arrives at her dealer's place, accompanied by her manager. But things take a deadly turn. The manager suddenly pulls out a gun and shoots the dealer dead. Jade, shocked, thought he was only there to talk. That's when she realizes she's in serious trouble too. The manager drags her back to the empty strip club, where he knocks her unconscious, planning to take advantage of the deserted building. But before he can act, Bonesaw strikes. He captures them both and hauls them to his warehouse. The manager is strung up like meat, while Jade lies tied in the back of the van. Bonesaw takes his time, torturing him in cruel ways, finally wrapping barbed wire around his throat and sawing until his head tears away. By then, Jade wakes up and manages to break free, but she can't escape in time. Bonesaw is waiting, and just like the others, he decapitates her without mercy. Meanwhile, Sheriff McConnell investigates the staged white van crime scene. The other officers are satisfied, convinced the killer is dead. But the sheriff notices something odd. The van isn't dripping blood. Bonesaw's van always leaks because he's modified it. Her instincts scream the truth. This was all a setup. Back at the hospital, Nina finally wakes, only to hear the devastating news that her baby didn't survive. Sheriff McConnell takes her statement, and Nina reveals the attacker drove a white van. But when she describes the driver's face, deformed, hairless, with no nose and blood-soaked white clothes, the sheriff's worst fears are confirmed. The killer is still out there. The next morning, Bonesaw delivers the mangled body parts to a nearby farm. The farmer casually buys fresh flesh to feed his pigs, turning Bonesaw's carnage into profit. Later, back at his warehouse, Bonesaw modifies his van even further, making sure no victim can ever escape again. Elsewhere, Cody visits a fortune teller. The old woman warns her, death is near. It circles you like a shadow. Cody brushes it off, thinking it's nonsense. But that very night, Bonesaw is back on the hunt. He spots the same truck that once hit Nina, with the arguing couple sitting nearby. He slaughters them both without hesitation. Then, he heads to the strip club. The club is empty, but Cody is still there, and her eyes land on the infamous white van. Alarmed, she dashes inside and calls the police. The message reaches Sheriff McConnell, who grabs Nina and races toward the club. By then, Bonesaw has already captured Cody, locking her inside his van as he drives toward the warehouse. On the way, he stops at a gas station, but this time, a worker notices him. The worker quickly calls the police, and the information is relayed to the sheriff. But here's the catch. Bonesaw notices the worker making that call. Sheriff warns him, "Stay inside, don't move, just wait." But this guy? He's seen one too many horror movies, and he knows exactly how those stories end, if you just sit and wait. So the moment he spots Bonesaw lurking outside the door, he bolts through the back, jumps into his car, and floors it, leaving Bonesaw in the dust. For once, all those horror movies paid off. They actually saved his life. By the time Sheriff reached the gas station, Bonesaw's van was already gone, but the trail of blood on the ground told her she was close. She pushed forward, and soon enough, the white van appeared in her sights. Flashing her siren, she forced it to stop and stepped out with her gun drawn. But the driver wasn't just any man. It was Bonesaw, and he had a shotgun ready. Before the sheriff could even react, he pulled the trigger, blowing her head apart. Nina, horrified, ducked behind the car for cover as Bonesaw drove away, fearing the sheriff was dead. But Nina wasn't about to let him win. She grabbed the sheriff's gun, jumped into the patrol car, and gave chase. The trail led her all the way to Bonesaw's warehouse. She'd called for backup, but there wasn't enough time to wait, so she hatched a quick plan. Parking the police car a distance away, sirens blaring, hoping to lure him. Bonesaw took the bait and moved toward the flashing lights. That was Nina's chance. She rushed to free Cody, but Bonesaw had already reinforced the van with modifications. Cody was still trapped. Nina's cover was blown. Bonesaw stormed back and fired at her. She barely dodged. This time, her bullets landed, tearing into Bonesaw's body. But unbelievably, he was still standing. With no other choice, Nina climbed into the van and sped away, with Cody still locked inside. Bonesaw wasn't done. He jumped into the police car and came after them. A few shots later, one bullet ripped through the van's tire, sending it crashing off the road. Bonesaw yanked open the back door, only to find Cody armed with a hammer. He answered by pulling out that infamous butcher's knife. Step by step, he advanced on her. Cody swung with all her strength, but the hammer caught in the chains above. Helpless, she was seconds away from death when Nina attacked from behind. That gave Cody her opening. She grabbed the knife and struck Bonesaw again and again, and the monster went down. Or so Cody thought. When Cody smiled at Nina, believing it was finally over, Bonesaw suddenly came to life and fatally wounded her. Nina wasted no time. She quickly picked up his butcher's knife and struck him in the chest. Bonesaw collapsed. Meanwhile, Cody, gravely wounded, takes her final breath right before Nina's eyes. Determined not to take any more chances, Nina pulls Cody out of the car, grabs a can of gas from the sheriff's vehicle, and drenches Bonesaw with it. She then steps back and sets him on fire. Within seconds, the car erupts into a fiery explosion right before her eyes. Afterward, she carries Cody's lifeless body, gently places her inside the sheriff's car, and drives away, believing it's finally over. But then, one chilling detail. Before the flames consumed the van, Bonesaw had already slipped out. He's still out there. And just like that, the movie ends. And that wraps up today's story. What did you think of this bloody ride? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling recaps. Until next time, sleep with one eye open